Back from winter holidays where I've had a chance to think about things, have a really good break, get some sunshine, which is fast fading, and I don't want to wash because I'm scrubbing it off. But had a fantastic trip again, did a lot of work with bees, and basically was able to see different perspectives, different things, and really broaden my mind with lots of things. But now we're back to reality. This is where we are. We're now January the 14th, 15th, and my word, we are racing through the month. I left on the 7th, had a long layover on one of my airports in Los Angeles, then another 12-hour flight to get to Paris, and then another hour's flight to get back to Rennes, near where I live. So that was great, but I managed to get back all without delay and without huge problems, because there was strikes over here as well. So luckily I didn't need to use the trains. But anyway, putting that aside, total success. As I said, it's wonderful to go away, but it's also great to come back, because I've got to concentrate on these things now. These lovely bees behind me, they've all got to be looked after. Overall, I'm happy the way they look. I've lost a couple of colonies in the last 5 weeks. Why, I don't know. Probably Varroa. And also we've had some Asian hornets problems in the autumn, which was difficult to spot this year because the weather wasn't as it usually was here. We went from a normal end of bone dry summer to quite a cold, damp, wet autumn very quickly, which is why we didn't have much ivy, and also why the Asian hornets weren't visibly present a lot. But it appears they were more than we thought, and we have had some damage because Asian hornets have been entering into the hives, the bees weren't flying, and they were some colonies were robbed out, and that's why there's no bees in them. So yes, colonies with no bees in, dying, obviously that's one of the things that we would say Varroa is a big problem with. You often find colonies with a little bit of brood left, the colony's collapsed, and there's a few bees in the brood nest trying to hatch out with their bees sticking out as they die. We have had some of that, so it is an indication that Varroa was the root of it, but we treated in, on normal treatments, and we just don't think it's really the Varroa this time. We think it really is more of a combination of things, but who knows. Anyway, the long and the short of it is, for me, at the moment, I'm not too overly worried. I'm looking at maybe 5, 6 or 8% losses at the moment, which is okay. It's not what I want 0, but, last or 2 years ago, I had 35, 40% losses, I think, so at the moment we're well okay. Now today what I'm doing is I'm actually, you can just see I've got a bucket here with candy in. What I'm doing is I've cut the blocks I showed you before in half, and I'm putting on a half pack of candy. This is the Apifondo I use, and the reason why I put it in another bag is if you cut it in half, it means you can put on a precise amount that you need and not really put on too much. I don't like putting on a whole slab, it's just too much, because if they don't take it down, you're not having to deal with a lot of waste next spring. Not that it would be waste, but it's just easier to just deal with smaller amounts, and you can be more precise, and you can to me, it's easier to monitor how much the bees are taking down when it's half a slab. So I'm going to put these on now on the colonies that are getting light. There is a few, but I was actually, I had a quick check around the apiary yesterday because I was strimming around the apiary. And if you're an American and wonder what strimming is, it's what we call weed eating or whippersnippering. But the funny thing is, it's the quickest way to do a hive check when you're strimming around your apiary, is because you know what's alive. Because you strim in front of the colony and they're all out, and you're like, yeah, that one's okay, that one's okay, as you get stung, because they absolutely hate it. I'm sure you all know that, but it just always makes me laugh, because you're a bit worried about what is alive and what isn't this time of year, and you're sort of thinking, how are we doing? Just strim around, you'll soon find out they're all right. But so I'm going to put this candy on the hives that need it. There's not many at the moment. The clusters are looking good. We'll have a look at a few clusters. But overall, it's just a check, because if there is some that are getting light, I want to get to them now. I don't want to leave them till another 2 or 3 weeks when they're virtually desperate, and if we get a cold snap, they just can't take on the candy. They need to be taking it in now, so if they get a cold snap, they've got it near them and it's liquefied. Okay, so anyway, you can see we've got a few bees flying. They've been doing that all afternoon. We're at sort of 12, 13 degrees. There's a little bit of pollen coming in. I'm not sure where they're getting it from this time of year. There's a few flowers. There's a bit of Mahonia left. There's some early stuff around. Luckily, the mimosa isn't in flower yet. That hopefully will be the end of next month, which is February. But there's a few mimosa shrubs that are coming into flower. We have got hazel out. The first few hazel is out now. Excuse me. So we are advancing, but I've got loads and loads and loads to do. The list at work is like a scroll, and I haven't even got to there yet. I'm just getting over my jet lag. Today is the first day after 3 days back that I'm starting to feel a little bit more human, but it is a killer, absolute killer. But now I feel ready to go, got loads to concentrate on. So let's go and check out a few hives. Good colony there, still got plenty of weight. So to be honest, I'm not going to give that anything more. But it's just a check more than anything. This one is absolutely corking, full of bees, looking nice. Loads and loads of honey in that, they don't need anything. But it's just a check to see what's going on, that's the most important thing. So this colony is one of the miracle ones that survived. I'll tell you why it survived, because I came back yesterday, went down to my apiary and the lid had blown off, and you'll see from the video clip the lid was in the tree and the bees inside were all alive and sitting there. They've been through rain, wind and gales with the roof off the lid. My fault, I usually put an elastic around them and it didn't. I thought, well, that's on well, and it wasn't. But so now I'm going to give them this candy and I'm going to give them some sugar as well. So they need to pack on as much as they can while they can. So you'll see I take the top off. Loads of bees, no smoke. They're actually fairly nice bees though, so this goes on. They're virtually out of stores. They're light as a feather because I've been using all their stores while they could. You can see they're a really good colony. Lots and lots of bees. So I'm going to just make a hole in this plastic so they can get to this. And also I'm going to give them some, so the sugar as well that I gave to another colony that was spare, so I can fit that in. So pretty nice, there's a lot of heat there. Break that in two if I can. Get it down. There we go. Give them half of that. At least they've got loads of food now to be getting on with. I'll be munching that down straight away. And at least I know they've had some food when they need it. Now what I put on top is I put on a aluminium like that. And I put on the original roof, but it just sits on top, and I'll get a couple of rocks to weight that down. But this is what I made, and if you remember, I talked about this last winter. It's a kind of thing I've got. I prefer to have the candy or the sugar right on top of the frames, so that the bees can really take down straight away what you give them, and the feeder that is on top of the bee is not isolating or insulating the candy or the sugar. My big issue was the fact that if you put a feeder on that's made of the same material, in other words polystyrene, on top of your bees, and it's cold and it's like enough so they want to burn energy, they can't get up to get on top of that, to get to that feed, to get to that sugar, the carbohydrate they need. So what happens, they often die still of isolation starvation, because the feed is sitting on top, but it's just too cold to get to them. So if you put the feed directly on top of the frame, and then you put an insulated cover above that with a small area for them to heat, they're not going to come to any problem. They're going to be able to eat what they need as they need it, and it's easy. That was just what I'm saying, and this usually works really well. So this colony now will have a chance. It's going to be a bit iffy if it survives, because they've really been through a hard time. But there's plenty of bees. I know there's a good queen in it. I know this is a good colony that I made early or late summer, and I know they've got a good chance. It's just one of those things happen. I should have had a strap around it, as I said, but overall now it's well fed. I'll come back and do an update on this one, and you'll see how much of that they've taken down. I basically just need to keep feeding them now right throughout to the spring. It's the same with all colonies though. If they're flying and it's not that cold, for us we're about between 9 and 12 degrees in the day at the moment, and the nights are like 5 and 6s, you know. There's not much variation, which is probably good, but the problem is the bees aren't winterizing enough. They are not shutting down enough for the winter. When it's 0 degrees, -2, -3 for us here, I'm really happy because the bees are almost in that kind of catatonic, slow, immobilized state, where as long as they're well set up, they've got food and everything's great, they'll be fine, and they don't burn as much as they do as they're burning now. At the moment, they're burning a lot of sugar, but there's nothing out there. You might see them flying and coming in with a bit of pollen, but all that is, it means that they're working at a bad percentage. There's less coming in than there is being consumed in the colony, and you've got to remember that right from the start. So mild winters are really bad news for bees because they don't let the bees shut down, and the bees are always moving. And the other thing about that is, come the spring, when the bees have got to hand over that baton from the winter bees that were made in October, November last year to the spring bees that are being born in profusion in April and May, there's that risk if you get a crash in the weather and a difficulty in the colony where they are struggling to make those spring bees. The bees are much more susceptible at that time of year because they're already weak and they're already exhausted because they've had a very busy winter where they haven't stopped moving. So we are at the moment looking at that problem next spring, where we're going to have to make sure we've got protein in the colonies early enough so that the bees have got some extra sustenance while they're trying to bring on those spring bees to make that colony. But that is one of the downsides, but it's the reality we have. It's the actual reality. It's not a question of going, oh, well, it might not happen, because it does. And that's why colonies can be really weak and struggle in the spring, because they can go into the winter great, not cold enough, and they spend the whole winter working too hard because they're trying to fly, but they can't. They do fly a bit, but they don't. They can't bring any nectar in, and there's going to be no nectar coming in at all into these colonies until really between end of March and mid-April. There's probably going to be nothing till it starts. So now I'm off to check all the rest of these, just to check they've got some sugars in, and I'm going to go back after and make up some sugar blocks, some more, because I've run out of candy. Well, I will have done, and I want to make sure that everything's got plenty of food, and if I need it and I've got it ready, I can just put it on straight away. I'm going to go to the shop and pick up more. You've just got to be organised and get ready. But generally I find the bees that you feed early in the year are the ones you have to look after all the rest of the winter. But that's just my opinion, but you know. Anyway, let's get on. I just wanted to show you this straight away. Instantly you can see this colony here, that one there, is a dead out, because look, if you look underneath, look at the amount of robbing we've had on it, okay? So this colony's been robbed out. The one next door is fine, because there's just the one this side, there's just a few bees coming and going, same as the one this side. I know that one's dead already, the other one, because I put bees, when I find a dead out or a colony that's with no queen or anything, I put it on its side at an angle, so instant I can tell the apiary that's got to go away. So these two, I'll go through in a minute, take out, strip them down. There won't be any honey left in that one, but that's been robbed out for the last 2 or 3 weeks because it's been mild and the bees have still been flying. But they've not been flying far, but they've been flying enough to go in and around the apiary to find out anything they can. And so, obviously I'm not happy that it was robbed out, because if there was any disease in that, but there wasn't, because they were all checked last autumn twice, so I'm not overly concerned, but it's just not the best thing. I'd rather bees weren't robbing my other colonies, but that's just the way it goes. When you get a mild winter, that happens to it. It keeps going, and it's going more this year than ever, because the bees, I think they know they're down on their stores. They expected more with the ivy, and it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. So they're always looking. I've never seen so much robbing in the last year than we have had here, because also I've got a lot of colonies here and I've got to feed more. But that's one of the downsides of having a lot of bees in one area. Just to talk about this is one of the sugar blocks I made up from Mike Waite's recipe. Cider vinegar, citric acid, obviously sugar and lemongrass oil, and you mix it all together to get a dry mix. Then you let it bake rock hard in the oven, or you just leave it out in a warm place and it'll just dry rock. But the bees absolutely love it, and it's a good cheap alternative to candy, because candy is really expensive. So you make this up in small shallow trays, and you can just break it up in bits if you want, or just put the whole block on. But I tend to put in half a block per colony, like I do with the candy, because I don't like using huge amounts. And the bees absolutely love it anyway. So for me, it's a good alternative, but it works well. Oh, they're good. Nice colony. To show you this, that's what I like to see. Beautiful colony. Full of bees, plenty of stores there still. Not rushing round. Absolutely lovely. Just leave these alone. I don't need to do anything with that. That's exactly what I like to see. Unfortunately, they're not all like that. That's just beekeeping for you. But that's good. Homegrown queens from my own stock. That's what I love to see. The one next door, not quite so good. But there's still a good amount of bees there. 3 frames of bees, loads of food. That's fine. Even if it's a small colony, they've got plenty of food. Let's check the end one here. A smaller colony again, but plenty of food. That's all I want to see. Good. Well, we've got a bit of sunshine. I just wanted to say one more thing. I've had quite a few people requesting where I got my suit from, my beekeeping suit. Well, it all lies in the label there. These suits are from Bebe Wear, and they're a company in the UK, United Kingdom, in England, situated in the West Country. I'll put the link up on the picture in a minute. The reason why I'm happy to say I like them is because I go by what personal service I get these days, and I find them really, really good. Whenever I order a suit online, it comes down exactly to the spec, because they are really particular about the measurements when they take them. I've just had these suits repaired. I've used them for 3 years, and you can just say I've had all the thumb elastics and the wrists repaired. The service was fantastic. I sent it off with an email, and it all packaged up. I got it back within 2 weeks, and they even contacted me before because there was an issue with payment, because I was actually away on holiday. So I had to get someone else to make the payment on my behalf, but they were really helpful. And I just want to say, to me, that makes a difference. When you get good after-sales service, it speaks volumes for the people behind the business. So if you want to buy a good suit, go to Bebe Wear. There are really good suits. I know they've got an extensive range now with extensive colours, whatever you fancy, and they are generally really good. I've bought suits when I started that were cheap, and all this mesh goes after a year. They use mesh that doesn't break down in the sunlight, and to me, it's little things like that that make a massive difference. So if you want to buy a suit, you're looking at buying a new one, go to Bebe Wear. I'm not getting sponsored by them. I just like to be fair and give credit where credit's due. So I'm going to leave it there and enjoy this very brief glimpse of sunshine, try and get a little bit back on my face before we lose it. Whatever you're doing, I hope you're good, and speak to you again soon. Bye for now.